They recently introduced a new hidden mechanic called Garrison Firepower, probably around the time of the Three Kingdoms expansion. That mechanic was always in the game, but it was hard coded. Now, though, it's possible to modify its effect. So let's see what this firepower is about in episode 7 of How to Mod It. Hello and welcome. Today we'll be looking at the Garrison Firepower. Just so there's no confusion, we are indeed talking about the usual Garrison mechanic. So arrows being added to towers, castle, and all of those when the unit is garrisoned inside of them. But now, we have more control over how much it affects the amount of arrows added. So let's jump right into it. If we go in Genie Editor, scroll down a bit, we're under the villager here. And if we scroll down just below the armor section, we have this box, Garrison Firepower. And we can see the villager has a value of minus 2.5. So why minus 2.5 is because this value in this box can be either negative, 0, or positive. And it has different effect. Negative meaning that it adds a fixed value of DPS to the garrison building. 0, no effect at all, no firepower is added. And if it's a positive value, it adds the DPS of the unit. And when I mean DPS, is the damage per second they are doing. And for the villager here, specifically while we're here, minus 2.5 is pretty much the exact amount needed to add one arrow to a watchtower. Because a watchtower has a damage of 5, it attacks every 2 seconds, so it has a DPS of 2.5. So for every threshold of 2.5, it will add 1 arrow. So I don't want to go too deep into the garrison mechanic. Spirit of the Law, T-West, and many others have done over the year many videos about this mechanic. It can get pretty in-depth, so I'd recommend watching those videos. But here for us modders, minus 2.5, it adds that amount of DPS to a garrison building. And now, if we look at an archer, for example, it has a positive value. Archer has a value of 1, meaning that it is now a multiplier. So negative value is you're adding this value of DPS, and for a positive value, you are multiplying this. So here, for the archer, for example, I believe they do 4 damage base. They attack every 2 seconds, so they add 2 DPS to a tower. So they wouldn't add an extra arrow with only 1 archer, for example. But if you upgrade your archer, you are also upgrading its damage and thus its DPS. But I don't want to get too deep into the garrison mechanic, but here you go. So either negative value for a flat amount, 0 for if you don't want anything to happen, and if it's 1, it's a multiplier. And most archer are 1 and infantry unit. If we just go check, let's check the militia. Oh, I already had modified it. My bad for that. If we go check the champion, it is at 0. So 0 meaning it doesn't do anything unless you have crenellation. So here I search for crenellation, and they also made that modifiable, which is really interesting. So it used to be just an on-off switch for infantry to do extra damage. And now attribute 130 will give infantry minus 2.5, so 2.5 DPS, the same as villager, to any building that are garrison, which is very interesting. You can easily modify it to be anything you want. You can just throw a minus 10 there to add 10 DPS to anything. You can make it positive or anything you want, really. So fairly straightforward. So if we go back here, as you can see, I already had modified the militia just to test it out, to add firepower to the militia like it was an archer, pretty much. So I changed the value from 0 to 1. So now its damage, well, or its DPS. It's better to think in terms of DPS for this kind of mechanic. So its DPS will be added to the tower and will be a test really soon. Actually, we can do it now. There was just one more thing I wanted to show, is that this is the Fire Lancer is probably the reason why they changed that mechanic or stopped that mechanic from being hard-coded and being modifiable by us, is because, as you can see, the Fire Lancer has an actual different value than any other unit, as minus 3.5 and its elite version is minus 4.5. So that unit will add way more DPS than the villager, for example, and most range unit, bar some, of course. So it's probably because it has that weird gunpowder thing. So they were like, we'll make that unit stronger. And I believe it's the only unit in the game that is like that. I haven't checked everything though, but that's fairly interesting, and we'll do some tests with it. So let's jump into the game right now. Let's pick the villager. So their basic watchtower, 5 damage, nothing added for now.
Yay.
And if we just, oops, here you go. Add 1 villager, adds 1 arrow.
Yay.
Fairly straightforward, nothing too fancy. If we throw all of them in there, here you go. 4 arrows added, 2.5 DPS each. That's as intended. Here we have our militia, and if we throw it in there, you can see it adds nothing. Why is that? It's because the DPS is not 2.5. DPS of a militia is 4 divided by 2, which is 2, which is not enough. We need a threshold of 2.5. And here, if we garrison it, here, now 2 militia is enough to go above that threshold of the DPS of this watchtower, and specifically here, and it has an arrow. So pretty straightforward mechanic once you understand how it works. So here, same watchtower. Let's add. Here you go. Let's add our unit, and it only adds 1 arrow. But this is an elite fire lancer. If we add another one, here you go. It jumped to 3, because if you remember, it adds 4.5 DPS per unit, and this completely bypassed the second threshold for the second arrow and jumped to the third one. And our normal fire lancer is not quite the case. It's not quite high enough, and I think it's pretty fun. Like they probably thought of it that way to make it so the elite fire lancer has a bit more oomph to its Garrison firepower. So I thought that was fairly nice. And that's what I wanted to show, just how to modify the value and how different unit can act and how it is fairly easy to modify and how it works. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for watching. Have a good one.